Hello and welcome to the Bundesliga show, the prediction show today, your weekly Thursday edition of the prediction show. So yeah, obviously this weekend is going to be the fifth weekend of the Bundesliga season 2023-24. Seems like we've been underway for quite a while, doesn't it? But obviously we're still only at week 4 or 5 actually because of the international break and a bit of a slow start this year, really, to the season. But, week 5, we're starting to get to know a few of the teams now, and we're getting to know roughly what to expect from certain teams. Still a few sides that, we're not really that sure what to expect from yet. And still 6 teams without a win as well going into week 5, which is quite a lot, I think, at this stage. And a few of those teams will actually play each other as well this weekend. So it's going to be a really exciting weekend at the top and the bottom. So yeah, let's start off with the Friday night game, which is, again, it's 2 teams that have had contrasting form, Stuttgart and Darmstadt. Stuttgart, pretty much the high flyers really this year with 3 wins from 4. Darmstadt with only 1 point from the 4 games. But let's be honest, the last performance was really quite impressive in that 3-3 draw against Borussia Mönchengladbach. But yeah, for me, it's going to be another game where Serhu Guirassy is going to be looking potentially at another 2 or 3. I think, obviously, really interesting stat, the fact that he's on 8 goals at this stage. Last year's Golden Boot winner only got 16. So after 4 rounds, he's already halfway to the total that won the title, that won the Golden Boot last season. Obviously, Füllkrug and Nkunku sharing it. So he's going to be really excited. I mean, things don't get any better for Stuttgart fans. Under the lights, in front of the Cannstatter Curve. For me, it's got to be a Stuttgart win, really, this. And I think quite comfortable, in truth. I think that Darmstadt will improve a little bit, and they might just nick a goal, but I'm still going to go for a 3-1 home win here for the home side, and probably a couple of goals from that man, Guirassy, as well. So over to you, Peter. What do you think for this one?
Wow, we picked the exact same scoreline.
Wow.
Also my tip, and I'm going to tip a Guirassy brace. He is actually on pace. He is outpacing Robert Lewandowski in all of his famous goal-scoring seasons with 8 goals through 4 match days. And Rory is here. You want to throw Rory's comment up there? He's going up for 6-0. We were talking about Guirassy's amazement on Monday's pod, and be sure to tune in to next Monday's pod, where I'm sure we'll have some great Guirassy headlines to show you.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all, to be honest with you. Rory says, actually, in all seriousness, he'd just take a W. Yeah, definitely. But, I mean, this is definitely, for Guirassy, it's definitely an opportunity to get a few goals under his belt, for sure. So, yeah, the next game, another one that looks pretty one-sided, in truth. I mean, I don't think there's many people going to be tipping Bochum away against Bayern Munich in this game. Obviously, Bayern Munich coming in on the back of that really entertaining and impressive 4-3 win over Manchester United. But, yeah, I mean, this is a different kind of test. A Bochum side who are going to be defensive. I think they've actually been okay this season. They've not won a game, but they've got 3 draws from the 4 fixtures and only 1 defeat. But they're just struggling to get over the line and win games. And this is one where they'll just try and keep it to 0-0 as long as possible. Obviously with Bayern Munich playing on the Wednesday, they've not got a very long turnover for this game. But yeah, it is obviously a friendship game as well. The 2 clubs do have a kind of friendship between each other as well, Bayern Munich and Bochum. And I think last year it finished 2 heavy defeats for Bochum against Bayern. I remember 7-0 at the Vonovia Stadion. I think it was 4-5 at the Allianz as well. So it's going to be a really, really hard game, this, for Bochum. And unfortunately for Bochum fans, I don't see anything other than a pretty heavy defeat. I'm going to go for a 4-0 here for the home side, Bayern Munich. What do you think, Peter?
Wow, we tipped the exact same scoreline again.
Great minds think alike, as they say.
Indeed, we must notify Kreskin. Well, actually, 2 years ago, it was 2 years ago this autumn that Bayern beat Bochum 6-0. And this one has the feel of that. Let's not forget, though, in that very, very same year, Thomas Reis's Bochum actually beat Julian Nagelsmann's Bayern back at the Vonovia Stadion. But away from home at the Allianz, I have been impressed with Bochum thus far. They do have a compact and very, very disciplined defensive side. However, what Germans refer to as the Dosen-Öffner, or the can opener, the tin opener, is going to come at some point. So you're going to have I think a 0-0 match heading into, say, 40 minutes, and then the goals start raining down, and that's when you get 4-0. That would be my tip as well.
Yeah, I think we do get quite a lot of those games in the Bundesliga, don't we, where teams do really well to keep it to 0-0, but then once that first goal goes in, they just lose all hope, basically, and it ends up being quite a heavy score. But I agree. I definitely think that kind of game is possible. But then probably the hardest one to tip so far, Borussia Dortmund versus VfL Wolfsburg. I mean, two sides, in my opinion, Wolfsburg have been the better of the two sides so far this season. And obviously Dortmund coming into this game on the back of I would say, pretty disappointing 2-0 defeat at PSG as well on Tuesday night. They just don't seem to have got going this season yet, Dortmund. I don't think it's a crisis by any means. They're still unbeaten with 2 wins and 2 draws, but there's not that many players that are really kind of starring at the moment. They've not picked up from where they left off last season in the second half of last year. Wolfsburg, on the other hand, are looking pretty steady. Maybe under Kovac, they finally found a system. You know, Jonas Wind, obviously on 5 goals as well. He's the second top scorer after Guirassy. But I still think that this is the kind of game where home advantage comes into play for me. I think if this was at Wolfsburg, I would possibly be tipping the Greens. But I think the fact that it's at Signal Iduna Park means that probably Dortmund have got to be just about considered favourites. And the likes of Marlon, you know, probably their best player this season, will be relishing another home game. So I've actually gone for a 2-1 home win for Dortmund here. I don't think it'll be easy by any means, and it could be a late winner, potentially, this one. But I do believe that the BVB will get over the line. What do you think, Peter?
Here I have the inverse scoreline. I have a 2-1 win for Wolfsburg.
Ooh, big one.
Yes. Latest injury update on Marcel Sabitzer is that he's not going to be available this weekend. And I think Nemetcha, although he has shown some strong form, particularly in the opening day match of the season, I don't think that he's going to be able to function as a good one-for-one replacement for Sabitzer and the type of tactics that Terzic is running now. Also, I think that we have a striker problem. I don't think that Haller is going to start. I think that Füllkrug is going to start, and he hasn't really found his form for Dortmund yet. So I will go for a 2-1 win for Wolfsburg.
Yeah, first big tip of the day, that one, I think. But yeah, I can definitely see why you would think that. Yeah. Then a really interesting game, Union Berlin versus Hoffenheim, another side that have come off Champions League duty this weekend, this midweek. Union Berlin, a brutal last-minute goal from Real Madrid in the 95th minute from that man, former Bundesliga favourite Jude Bellingham, consigned Union to a brutal defeat. But it was a famous and very proud performance. You know, nobody in Köpenick will be forgetting that performance for a long time, as it came very, very close to a famous point in Madrid. But this time they've got a different kind of challenge against on-form TSG Hoffenheim, who are really starting to find the feet under Pellegrino and Pellegrino Matarazzo. You know, they finished last season quite well, and they've won 3 back-to-back now in the league. And I think they are looking aside that I would have them one of the sides that I'm not sure quite what to expect from them, even at this stage. They did win 3 out of the first 4 last season as well, before absolutely collapsing, basically, for large parts of the season and only just surviving in the last couple of match days last year. But I mean, this is a game where, again, you would imagine Union Berlin to win this, but they have lost 3 in a row in all competitions now, even though they're not playing badly by any means. But yeah, for me, I just think Union is such a good home side. Obviously, they were unbeaten for about 18 months before losing the last home game against RB Leipzig. But I still don't think Hoffenheim are at the level that Leipzig are playing at currently. And I think probably a 3-1 home win for Union for me there. What do you think, Peter?
Well, after giving Union a very, very close look over the last 2 weeks for the tactics column, it brings me absolutely no joy to say this is a horrible, horrible tip from a German fan. I think that Hoffenheim will eke out a 1-0 victory there at the Stadion on the Alte Försterei. Yeah, that's an unfortunate tip. I'm not pleased at all to give that tip, but that's where I think Union are at the moment. I think that they're really, really stagnating. And, you know, their strength is in their system, the unchanged system from Urs Fischer, which is just not clicking at the moment. I don't think that there's any alternatives that he can turn to. To answer Balam's question about half and half scarves, It's acceptable at certain matches and not so much at others. Union and Hoffenheim would not be a match where you're going to see any half and half scarves. The Union ultras are not going to produce any half and half scarves at that match. But at Kaiserslautern Nuremberg, it was just fine. It's like that in English football too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is really. Yeah, it's like in general they're not really that like, but there are certain games where like if the teams like each other, then it is more acceptable. Definitely, there's no question about that. Okay, yeah. So yeah, moving on. Yeah, so this is a real kind of clash of the titans. Another Traditions club versus another company club, as they would say. But yeah, this is another one. Borussia Mönchengladbach haven't won a game of football yet this season, despite the fact that it's very hard to know where Gladbach are at, to be honest, because they are scoring goals and they're creating chances, but they're just not winning games. And in my opinion, they've been a team that have played well for half of the game, but poorly for the other half. That's been the way their season's gone so far under Sioane. But there is hope there. You know, Kvanchara, if he's fit enough to start this week, he's already got 3 goals in his first 4 games. I think also Honorat had a good game last week against Darmstadt. And there is potential there, but we've not really seen it in terms of results yet. And this is going to be another hard game because RB Leipzig are just looking really, really hot. I would say alongside Leverkusen, they've been the best side so far this season, in my opinion. I think they've been fantastic. Danny Olmo will miss the game, but there's still more than enough quality in that roster to replace him. It'll be interesting to see if Šeško maybe gets a start. He's scored a few goals off the bench, but is still yet to make his first big start. Normally, I would tip Gladbach to get something out of this game because I think they have a great record against the kind of big boys, so to speak, the big money boys, I should say, of the division, the likes of Bayern, Dortmund. But I've just got a feeling that Leipzig are just going to keep rolling on here and they're going to get another 3-0 away win, unfortunately, for Gladbach fans. I just think they just look too good at the minute, Leipzig. What do you think, Peter?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think we do actually see a high-scoring affair here. I'm going to go 4-1 Leipzig. Kvankara, last I heard, is probably not going to be available to start this weekend, which is one of the big reasons why I think Gladbach doesn't really stand a chance here. He's a striker that we mentioned him on the first pod of the season. He really is an excellent physical presence, reminds you a lot of Jan Koller and Tomasz Rosicky, or maybe a combination of the two. I think that, he's an impressive character, but if he's not starting and you have Jordan Sibacho up there in that 4-2-3-1, it's simply not good enough. And Leipzig are rolling. They're absolutely rolling. Don't need Timo Werner. No need for Timo Werner anymore. You can bench him. And so 4-1 Leipzig, I go.
Yeah, I think ironically, since Werner's actually been dropped, I think Leipzig have become more clinical. I think Timo Werner just seems to have lost his confidence in front of goal after that spell at Chelsea altogether. And to be honest, I'm not sure whether the German international really has a future at Leipzig anymore, to be honest. Anyway, moving on. So a game at the other end of the table this time. We've talked about a lot of teams that have got hopes for high finishes this season, but these are 2 clubs that will probably just be happy to stay in the division at this stage. FC Augsburg and Mainz 05. This is a very hard one to predict because, I mean, Peter knows that I have a bit of a soft spot for Augsburg, but they'll probably take the lead in this game at least once, probably 2 times, but will they be able to see it out? That's the problem, because this has been a problem since the last 10 games of last season and also this season, that as soon as Augsburg take a lead, they can't hold it for more than 5 minutes. And that's a big, big worry. They just seem to have forgotten how to win games. The days of those 1-0 Augsburg wins just seem to be part of the past, unfortunately, at the moment for the Bavarians. And I've got a feeling that it could be a similar story here. I think Augsburg are favourites because Mainz have just been putrid so far this season. They've probably been the worst side in the division so far this season, definitely. They've been really poor. And they are actually propping up the table as we go into round 5. For me, Augsburg should win this game. There's enough quality on there, but I've got a feeling that we might see a late Mainz equaliser in this one. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. What do you think, Peter?
We agree, actually. I thought initially that this might be some good news for your Augsburg boys, for your Bavarian Swabians there, because Mainz have been genuinely awful. But As a matter of fact, I was going to tip one of those old 1-0 Augsburg victories, but you know what? You convinced me with the fact that Augsburg cannot hold a lead this season. The fact that you mentioned that and emphasized that has got me doing a 1-1 draw as well.
Yeah. And then, moving on to another two teams who are closer to the bottom, but potentially have slightly different impetus going into this game. I mean, Werder Bremen, they're scoring goals. They've scored 6 goals in the last 2 games. The last game they started extremely weak. The likes of Dux was benched, and obviously Boré wasn't fit enough to start after being on international duty. But I wouldn't be surprised to see both of them unleashed in this game. Obviously, Dux came off the bench and basically played pretty well, scoring a goal as well. And I believe that this is one that Werder have got to be winning, really. I think if Werder win this one, 6 points from 5 games is pretty okay, considering that, they have had quite a bit of a turnaround, losing Füllkrug in the summer. But I think Bremen are going to continue to be a strong home team, which is what we saw for much of last season. I think they will beat the likes of Köln at home. I think it'll be quite an entertaining game. Both sides will believe they can win this one, but as for Köln, I'm pretty worried about them. I tipped them to get relegated at the beginning of the season, and they've not been absolutely terrible. They've not been as bad as Mainz or Darmstadt, but they've just not got the quality up front to score the level of goals that you need to stay up. That's my fear for them, and I think it's going to be a 3-1 home win, this one, for the green and whites. What do you think, Peter?
You may recall last season when we were doing a watch along, and I was doing some tips during the halftime break, that I tipped a 0-0 goalless draw in the Saturday night Topspiel between, I think it was Schalke and Gladbach. Somehow I have a premonition that it's going to end this way too. I think that Bremen, they are going to wake up at some point. I think Dux is fit and Boré can start, but it's going to take some time for those two to figure out the degrees of separation that they need to operate with in the 3-5-2. Köln have no real offensive firepower to speak of, but they do have defensive discipline. So unfortunately, I have a horrible premonition that this is going to be a 0-0 draw. As somebody who's responsible for covering all 9 fixtures in the Bundesliga every weekend, I think it's going to be the second consecutive Saturday night fixture after Frankfurt Bochum that leaves me feeling empty and wondering why I'm covering Bundesliga on a Saturday night. So I go 0-0, unfortunately. I think this is going to be the bore fest of the weekend.
Interesting, yeah. And then an interesting looking game moving on to Sunday as well. I think this one is quite an exciting looking game. Two teams who really aren't short of goals, Leverkusen and Heidenheim. Obviously, 2 sides with very different ambitions going into this season. Leverkusen have very much got sights set on the title and potentially even European glory as well in the Europa League. I think that squad and that team and the manager is good enough to be challenging on 2 fronts this season. Heidenheim, obviously, their goal is just to stay up. Not many people expected to play as well as they've done so far this season, especially going forward. Best has been one of the stars of the season so far, and Dingchi in the last game looked really good too. And, Kleindienst has always got goals in him. So I definitely see Heidenheim scoring in this one, but again, Leverkusen have just got too much. I think there may be some rotation because obviously they've got Europa League action tonight, actually. Although I would imagine they'd probably prioritize the Heidenheim game over that one because they've got a relatively weak-looking group in the Europa League. So you'd imagine them to get through even with rotations. But I still see this one being a really good Sunday afternoon treat. I think this will be entertaining. I'm actually going to go for a 4-2 Leverkusen win. I just think both sides will go for it. And there probably will be mistakes at the back, but I see Leverkusen continuing their run of form. Peter?
We sync up again. I also tipped a 4-2 win for Leverkusen. Wow. This would be my tip of the weekend. Actually, following Heidenheim this season, it just seems like there's going to be a lot of 4-2 matches with them.
Yeah.
This is my recommendation for everybody Sunday afternoon. You may want to skip the Saturday evening Topspiel, and if I'm wrong about that, I apologize. But take the girl out, have some fun. But on Saturday afternoon, I highly recommend everybody tune in to Leverkusen Heidenheim. Also because Xabi Alonso and Frank Schmidt are the 2 most tactically intriguing trainers so far in the Bundesliga this season. So it'll be a real tactician's delight. And what else are you going to do on a Saturday afternoon if you're not in Bavaria, if it's not Oktoberfest time, or if you're not?
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my tip for the match of the weekend. And I also tip an exciting, tactically intriguing, high-scoring 4-2 win for Leverkusen.
Yeah, I think this is game of the weekend. I really do. I'm really looking forward to this one on Sunday afternoon. But yeah, the next game, the final game of the weekend, the late kickoff on Sunday it's a game that probably the last 2 or 3 seasons would have been like a really exciting game. But the two sides aren't looking really in that good fettle at the moment. It's not a crisis for either of them. Both of them are around about mid-table. Frankfurt are unbeaten, but they've only got 1 win out of those 4 games. And in my opinion, they've not really looked particularly impressive. Although they probably should have won a Bochum last week after that pretty soft penalty gave away a point. Freiburg on the other side, it's hard to know where they're going because you've got to be realistic with Freiburg, as we said on the Monday night pod. I just feel as though like they've done so well the last 2.5, 3 seasons, ridiculously well. And it's got to the point where people expect them to be winning this kind of game almost. And you've got to be realistic. You know, Freiburg, they don't have a big budget really, despite playing in Europe, and they have lost a couple of key players. You know, it might be that they have to drop down to like lower mid-table or mid-table this season, but that wouldn't be a disaster by any means. And for me, this is potentially the hardest one to tip. This could go either way. It really could, or it could be right in the middle in a draw. So considering I've only tipped 1 draw so far this evening, today, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw between these sides. I just think might not be a classic, but I think it was, Freiburg, it's the kind of game they could nick in the past, but I'm not sure at the moment they're in good enough form to go there and win. So I think the two sides might cancel each other out for a 1-1. Peter?
We sync up yet again. No, I mean, I think it's so obvious that it's going to be a 1-1 draw. I mean, Frankfurt have had so many 1-1 draws this season. These are 2 teams that are going to be working on a tight turnaround from their respective fixtures in the Conference League and the Europa League. They're 2 teams that don't really have their offensive system figured out yet. Freiburg are struggling to score goals. They're going to have to do without Gregoritsch. Frankfurt are... I don't know. It's there in the tactics column if anybody wants to read about them, but it's so blocky and choppy, and everything is so axially chained. It's horrible. It's going to take some time for them to furnish us with some exciting football. So our Sunday match reporter over on Bully News, Olton Korkahan, is going to have fun with Leverkusen Heidenheim, but I don't think he's going to have a lot of fun with this match. I think he got a one.
Yeah. It's definitely a game between 2 teams who are off form. I think you can say that much, and struggling to get much of a tune out of the rosters at the minute. But yeah, that concludes it. So yeah, we're just going to have a look at the table as well, how the table reckoner kind of sums up. So as you can see on mine, I actually have Bayern Munich going top on goal difference by just a goal from Leverkusen, courtesy of a big win over Bochum. Leipzig keeping in tow with just a point behind the leaders, and even VfB Stuttgart making up the top 4 as well in my table. Looking down at the bottom, I've got Darmstadt to finish the table bottom, and then Köln as well to drop into that bottom 2. But Mainz to get a kind of unconvincing point in Augsburg, just about to go up to the relegation playoff spot. But by my recollection, none of those 6 teams who haven't won yet are going to get off the mark this weekend. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I think those 6 sides, you're struggling to find where they're going to get that win from. And they've all got issues of their own. Some of them tactically, some just a lack of quality, some defensive errors. But you do get the feeling that those 6 sides, maybe with the exception of Gladbach, I would imagine by the end, are probably going to be right down there come the end of the season. What about you, Peter? How does your table look this week, the end of this weekend?
Well, I mean, the only one that we really split on we split on 2 matches, Wolfsburg, Dortmund, and Union Hoffenheim. So my top 4 is the same as yours. The only difference then is that Wolfsburg and Hoffenheim are behind Stuttgart, and Dortmund is in 7th place. Our bottom 3 looks pretty much almost the same. The only difference being, of course, that Gladbach are below Köln. In my Köln are in the relegation, or just above the relegation fray, but not by much, just on goal differential. I also don't have any of the 5 teams or any of the 6 teams that are winless yet getting off the mark on this particular weekend. But it is still the Bundesliga. It is still the world's best footballing beat. Hopefully everybody can make some time for it this weekend. Check out the fan scene, which no matter what the game is like, is second to none. And we'll be here on, don't forget to tune into the fantasy show tomorrow. And we'll be here for you on Monday to wrap it all up.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously remember the fantasy football show as well, which will come tomorrow morning to 10:30 European time, 9:30 UK time. So yeah, don't forget that as well. One of our most popular features on the Bundesliga show channel. So yeah, if you enjoyed what you saw today, check out our Twitter @OverTheBarFB and @OverTheBarExtra. And don't forget to keep liking and commenting and things like that. You know, it's been a really, really positive season for us so far. We've had, going on 200 subscribers since we started back in late July with the kind of predictions for the season. So yeah, keep in touch with that. Keep recommending us to your friends. We're really happy with the numbers we got for the Kaiserslautern and Nuremberg vlog as well. That continues to climb, so keep recommending that if you enjoyed what you saw. We've got more vlogs for you coming as well. We're not going to give that away just now, but yeah, we've got more games, myself and Peter, coming up in the coming weeks. So yeah, stay in touch, and we'll be back tomorrow with the fantasy football show. So thank you very much, guys, and ciao.